GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network. The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This here is episode 153.
Episode 153, my babies. Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins.
You got that right. I am Ryan Wolfe, joined by John Cimino as always, and you can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well to stay up to date on the latest podcast. John, how you doing today?
I am doing wonderfully well. I can't complain. I love football this week. For those that follow my Jets talk shenanigans on social media, when they lose, I hate football. When they win, I love football. I only just post that after every game, just because the reactions speak for it, the folks, the followers that respond or react to just those three simple words, whether it's I love or I hate football every week. It turns up some amazing, interesting conversations. So,
I do love that some people don't realize it is a gimmick, but also it's the truth.
Right. it's hilarious. And you know what? If they're not podcast listeners, they won't know. Obviously, podcast listeners will have an idea, but it's still fun nonetheless to just kind of throw that. But for this week, I love football.
Well, hey, the nice part was there was a mini bye week for not only the Buffalo Bills, but for Trust the Podcast as well. This is Wednesday evening, and the Buffalo Bills played last Thursday evening. So it's been a few days for us to kind of sit around, gather our thoughts. What did we feel about the game, and what's going on around the league as well that affects the Buffalo Bills, or just interesting in general. So again, we're going to run through all of that today.
The Bills have even some more time because they're Monday night this week. So
yeah,
they should be nice and well rested. And I pity them Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll tell you.
We're in
much.
that stretch, John, where it's Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night. So they've got a few days between games, which is great because, again, we'll talk about it. Bills are injured. Shockingly, nothing that the Bills have done wrong. It's just really bad luck.
It's just the way of the world.
Prior to the game, John, running down here, Buffalo defensive end Greg Rousseau, not surprisingly, was named the AFC Defensive Player of the Week for his 3-sack performance in Buffalo's Week 1 victory over Arizona. It's the second time in Rousseau's career he has earned the Defensive Player of the Week honors. Happened the other time was Week 5 at Kansas City in the 2021 season. But John, jumping into the game, Thursday night done right. Buffalo dominates the Miami Dolphins 33-10. Now, don't get it twisted. Normally when we talk about statistics on this podcast, our arguments are very statistically based.
Sure.
But this game, Buffalo had it in their pocket by the half. Let's just call a spade a spade.
Handily, they handily had the game, and it's funny. I shared with you, and I shared with Brandon as well. Much like Aaron Rodgers has ownership stake in the Chicago Bears, Josh Allen has ownership stake in the Miami Dolphins. I've got some statistics.
Speaking of stats, I've got some good ones for you coming up. But John, real quick, Buffalo dominates Miami 31-10. Buffalo moves to 14-2 against Miami since McDermott's first year as head coach in 2017. This marks 5 straight wins against the Dolphins and 12 of the last 13, including playoffs. Buffalo's 14 wins against Miami since 2017 marked the most in the NFL by any team versus a single opponent in that span.
And you know, it's funny when you mention the score being 31-10. I know it's such a big disparity between the two numbers. It really wasn't that close, though.
If Buffalo continued to play with if they didn't go essentially into self-preservation mode, and we'll talk about Terrell Bernard, we'll talk about Tua Tagovailoa here briefly, but at some point in time, you just go look at. They're not doing much. Let's not do much. Let's just self-preserve. Let's get out of here happy, healthy, safe with a victory and go forward from there, which again,
Absolutely.
Moving to our three big things here, John, it will be highlighted very quickly, but our three big things brought to you by puckluck.com, your one-stop resource for all your National Hockey League sports betting action. Puckluck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Not to worry. Puckluck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, puckluck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League. It's teams or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. Now, John, wrapping up the offense, Josh Allen, quarterback. 13 of 19, 139 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown with 2 rushes for 2 yards. Not super sexy, but guess
Doesn't
what?
need to be.
Win's a win, baby. However you do it,
Indeed.
a win's a win.
Get that dub.
Josh Allen moves to 12-2 in his career against Miami, extends
That's-
his personal
that's
record
insane.
to 7-0 on Thursday Night Football.
Mm-hmm. 7-0. Jeez.
His 226th career total touchdown pushes Allen past Dan Marino and Peyton Manning for the second most total touchdowns in a player's first 7 seasons. And here is your fun stat of the game, brought to you by Chris Downey, our unpaid intern, whom I have now turned to just having him send information to us via text group, which is trust the text message. I thought it was pretty cute. I'm very cheeky. Thank you. Per at Between the Nums NUMS, that's Greg Harvey on Twitter, quote, there have been 1,800 plus occurrences since 1950 of an NFL quarterback having 5+ starts versus a single opponent, including the playoffs. The only quarterback over that time frame to have an .850 plus win percentage, or 85% of the time or more, and account for 3+ touchdowns per game versus any opponent is Josh Allen against the Dolphins. That's it.
Wow.
Josh Allen loves playing football against the Miami Dolphins.
He does. And that's kind of, I mean, it's sad for Dolphins fans whom, you know, we're like we've said, or at least I've said over the course of the past.
John, I'm going to jump in really quick. I gotta cut you off there, John. I don't feel bad for the Dolphins.
I don't feel bad either. But
do you understand how long, and I know obviously being a Jets fan, you're going to say, yeah, idiot. Tom Brady, what's the term? He sunned the Buffalo Bills for
Tom Brady.
years?
Talking about ownership stake. Tom Brady owned the Buffalo Bills.
So to see the shoe on the other foot now,
I love it though. I love it because it's the Dolphins. I love it because it's the Dolphins, and they think, you know, like I said before, they act like the Cowboys fans do, where it's every year is this year, every year is their year. Everybody wants to go to South Beach. Everybody loves the Florida life. Everybody loves the Miami Dolphins, except for, you know, the Buffalo Bills.
Well, look, it's one of those situations where, and again, trying to just stay on the straight and narrow here, not to go too crazy. Mm-hmm. It's something where Sean McDermott seems to coach his best games against the Miami Dolphins, but also at the same time, Mike McDaniel just seems to kind of have like a brain fart every time he plays the Bills. All these motions and interesting things that you see the Dolphins do in other games that make you worried about the Miami Dolphins when they're going to play against your New York Jets or our Buffalo Bills. You don't see a lot of that. And again, the defense did a great job, but also like they're in his head. Real estate inside his head.
Absolutely. It's the way that, and this is not to compare coaches, you know, because obviously Bill Belichick is in a league of his own, but during the first Patriots run, a lot of teams played scared against the Patriots, and they were intimidated against that defense. They were intimidated against Brady and the offense. They were intimidated against the mastermind that is or was Bill Belichick. Mike McDaniel plays that level of reserved with Miami, specifically against the Buffalo Bills. He doesn't, to your point, doesn't seem like we see that when he plays any other team. But when it comes to the Bills, for some strange reason, there had to be rent-free in his head, the Buffalo Bills are.
Well, and John, it does help out when running back James Cook goes 11 carries for 78 yards at 7.1 yards per carry, 2 rushing touchdowns with 1 reception on 1 target for 17 yards and a receiving touchdown. Racking up the touchdowns, he had a 17-yard touchdown reception, a 1-yard touchdown run, and a 49-yard touchdown run. 3 touchdowns in the first half for James Cook, tie the most ever by a Bill in the first half. Accomplished 6 times before by a Buffalo Bill most recently by Isaiah McKenzie versus Miami on January 3rd, 2021, which was in the 2020 season. It's Cook's second career game with a rushing and receiving touchdown, and this is a fun one. James Cook became the first Buffalo Bills player to record a rushing and receiving touchdown in Miami since Thurman Thomas in 1991.
Look at that.
That's splitting the hair of a hair, but that's one of those things where you go, they don't do that a lot apparently. So that's pretty cool. But
apparently not.
We saw on what we saw on Sunday, we saw on Thursday, everyone eating again offensively. There were 9 different players that recorded at least one target on Thursday night. Khalil Shakir stepped up, stepped out, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 54 yards, looked incredibly dynamic. Tight end Dalton Kincaid got his first receptions of the year, 4 receptions on 4 targets for 33 yards. Again, we are still seeing that kind of too high safety look for the Buffalo Bills where dink and dunk, or hey, look at if they're going to play 2 high safeties, keep running the ball so they bring those safeties down, which then opens up the field for passing. Now, granted, I will warn everybody. You know by now, if you've listened to Trust the Podcast for the 7th, this being the 7th season, 153 episodes. I'm not a defensive guru here. I'm just reading what I see and understanding what I see, and that seems pretty logical to me. When you see 2 high safeties, just run the ball. Because again, You've got James Cook. Lean on the run, lean on Cook, lean on Josh Allen, and hey, guess what? You're going to win a lot of football games in the National Football League this year.
Absolutely. You know, you have it written down there pretty well. I mean, the offense executed what they need to, but the defense really stole the show.
Absolutely. And that brings us, John, to wrapping up the defense and special teams. Defensive tackle Ed Oliver had 3 tackles, all solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and a quarterback hit. He was a dominating force on Thursday night. There was a clip on TikTok from, I believe it was the Greenlight podcast with Chris Long, where he pointed out that Ed Oliver is straight up just a dog. You blow up a 3rd down and a 4th down play back to back. Now, I know people get pissed in Buffalo because Ed Oliver may disappear for a game or 2 and then show up and have a really good game. But guess what? He's always there. He's always a dominant force on that defensive line, which, again, helps the Buffalo Bills dominate. Another thing, John, that helps the Bills dominate, young cornerbacks doing crazy things. Cornerback Jamarcus Ingram had 2 pass deflections, 2 picks, and a touchdown. They were his first and second career interceptions. He's the first Buffalo Bill with 2 picks on the road since Jordan Poyer accomplished this feat on October 2nd, 2022, week 4 at Baltimore. It was also Ingram's first career touchdown, which was a 31-yard interception return for a touchdown. Per at UB John Fuller, Ingram is the first UB Bowl player to have 2 interceptions in an NFL game. That's awesome. Ingram's pick 6 marks the first time Buffalo has tallied an interception return for a touchdown in Miami since Preston Brown recorded a pick 6 in week 3 of the 2015 season. So again,
I wonder, and I have this question here because the reason why the Bills defense stole the show for me, more than just these impressive stats, Chris Downey had them and he didn't play them. And he told us on the day of the game that he didn't play them. And then they start dominating and doing all of this, and it was like, oh, so that was why it really
he in fantasy cut them. And I have the 40 again, Wolfe and Center Football League breaking down the 4th wall. I know nobody cares. I'm 0-2, defending champion. I don't know. I'm shook. If injuries have crushed my team so far. Injuries and the 2 high safety look where, hey, I've got AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown on my team. And I'm still losing. Like, that shouldn't be happening. But anyways, I digress. Chris cut the Bills. I picked the Bills up because, again, silly to do something like that early in the season. Chris will probably regret it, but it is what it is, But how many points did Buffalo's defense tally? Over 20. I didn't play him because I picked him up during the game, but over 20 points. And John, they will be starting this week for me against the Jacksonville Jaguars, as they absolutely should. All right, continue with the I'm sorry, that was okay. Just looking at Jamarcus Ingram, though, the one thing about him that I've noticed so far is that he always has a knack for finding himself in the right spot at the right time, whether it is breaking up a pass that maybe could have been a pass interference, or hey, look at balls in the air, it gets deflected off of a guy. Jamarcus Ingram is right there. Like, those players like that, you just have to have those to have a successful defense. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You may not even try. You're just in the right spot. Speaking though, Christian Benford, 7 tackles, 6 solo, 1 pass deflection. The Benford Douglas combination continues to dominate that Buffalo Bills secondary. If you played the dog audio, it was very quiet.
I don't know. I gotta do something with this.
It's okay.
Dog.
There we go.
There you go. Defensive end Von Miller.
Dog.
Okay, I'm glad that you got that. Thank you. Tallied his second sack of the season, John. Not only did he improve his career total to 125.5 sacks, tying Hall of Fame defensive end Dwight Freeney for 18th all time in the NFL sack list, I think it's safe to say Von Miller may be back. And I only preface this tweet with that because at per Next Gen Stats on Twitter, quote, Von Miller generated all 4 pressures and a sack on 14 pass rush matchups against Dolphins right tackle Austin Jackson. Every one of Miller's pressures, he got to the quarterback in under two and a half seconds. Miller's 2.10 second average time to pressure is his fastest in a game since 2021. So it's the fastest in a game since he tore his even before he tore his ACL. So it's looking like right now, knock on wood, cross your fingers, hold your breath, say your prayers. Von Miller might be back.
Okay, well, one second sack of the season after the second game, he's on pace for 17.
Well, and again, also.
Sorry, I had a frog in my throat there, and I had to take some
it's
water.
not even the sacks; it's the continued pressure. It's always seeing Von the pocket breaks. Von Miller's right there. Pocket breaks.
Well, he's got something. He's got something to prove. Don't think he hasn't heard. Is he washed up? Is he done? Did this injury take its toll on him? He's not the Von Miller of old. Don't think he didn't come back to the field this year with that chip on his shoulder.
He's showing
up and showing out.
It's a reminder too that these things can take time. There are guys who come back from. I'm trying to remember. There are people who have rushed back from injuries, been perfectly fine. There are guys who it takes multiple years for them to come back and be fine again. There are guys who never are the same. You can't predict it. The human body science is so wild. So it's something that I can't wrap my head around. So I just shut up and keep talking. Shockingly, that's all of you should know by now. That's not very surprising. Buffalo's defense, along with 2 sacks, Buffalo recorded 10 tackles for loss, 4 pass deflections, and 5 QB hits. It's the first time since week 8 at the Jets in 2014 that Buffalo had multiple interceptions in the first quarter of a road game. And John, here's a fun stat. Per at Chris Brown Bills, Chris Brown, the play-by-play announcer for the Buffalo Bills. Since Sean McDermott was hired by the Bills, different Chris Brown.
Right.
Since Sean McDermott was hired by the Bills in 2017, Buffalo has given up the fewest 20-plus yard plays in the league at 281. That's 32 fewer than any other club. Last night, Thursday night, in the 31-10 victory, the Bills surrendered one, a 21-yard reception by Jalen Waddle. So again, we look at the Bills, we say, man, there are some games they struggle. They do a lot of bad stuff, but you know what? Taking a step back, looking at the picture, the full picture, wow, that is an impressive stat. And it's
Absolutely.
not like it's been in the last 5 games. It's since 2017. It's been a couple minutes.
It has been. You play to win the game, and they're doing everything that they really need to, and in some instances more, to ensure that win. Again, this is a team that was written for dead, essentially, coming into the season. With the moves that were made, the trades that were made, the losses that were made. This is the year that this is going to be a rough one because the cap open but the cap will open up next year. So everybody was kind of like looking to next season and kind of forgetting about this season when this team ain't a bad team. They're really not a bad team, and they've showed it so far. Just continuing to play, continuing to execute, continuing to follow the game plan, sticking to the game plan, and believing in themselves and listening to their coaches. When you come to work and do your job, it's the easiest way to keep things rolling, and that's what the Buffalo Bills are doing right now.
One might say they're trusting the process, and it's working out pretty well for them.
They did, and they should be trusting the podcast as well.
I agree.
Hey.
I like it. I like what you did there. Excuse me. Now, linebacker Terrell Bernard did leave the game with a pectoral injury. He played only 14 snaps, which ended up being about 18.4% of the defensive snaps for the game. After the game, we found out per ESPN's Adam Schefter, he suffered a strained pectoral muscle on Thursday Night Football. in the victory over Miami. He's expected to miss roughly a month, he being Bernard, which makes him an IR candidate, but this is not expected to be season-ending. Linebacker Balin Spector stepped up in Bernard's absence, recording 10 tackles, 7 solo with 1 tackle for a loss. Sean McDermott put it perfectly post-game to the media, quote, "Next man up. The guys did a great job. These guys work hard. Good things happen when you work hard, and sometimes the ball finds you like that." A conversation, John, that I've had with a group of friends who are Bills fans is that it feels different with Bobby Babich coaching the defense so far, because instead of having McDermott, and this is what was brought to my attention, because I'm like, oh, what is it? Like, he's just doing a great job. And someone said, well, this is the difference between a head coach coaching the defense, where the head coach has so much other stuff to worry about that a defensive coordinator can go, okay, Bernard's out. That's a huge loss. He's one of the best linebackers in the league. Okay, great. How do we fix that? How do we patch that up? How do we make it so it's not as big of a loss as it seems on paper? And I mean, Thursday night, it seemed like it worked out pretty well. We'll see how the next month, 4 or 5 games go, 4, 5, 6 games go, but it worked out pretty well on Thursday night for the Buffalo Bills, despite the big injury.
It really did. I mean, the team is averaging 33 points, 32, I believe it is points, 32 and a half points in each of the games so far. They're high scoring. They're potent. All systems go, man. Should be a very easy one. I believe the Jacksonville one, I think, isn't Monday night a doubleheader too?
Yep. So it'll be a little.
They got the early one.
Hey, very good. Real quick too, before we hit a commercial break, I want to get your thoughts. This is not here on the rundown, but this did just happen yesterday. Okay. The Buffalo Bills held a workout for 2 free agent kickers, Anders Carlson and Cade York, according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network. This comes after Tyler Bass went 1 for 2 in Thursday night's win over the Dolphins, which he connected on a 43-yarder but missed badly on a 45-yarder. Is this something that you believe the Bills may be just trying to light a spark, or do you think where there's smoke, there's fire?
Oh, of course. In an industry like this, where there's smoke, there's fire. Now, I'm not saying that the intention is to completely, replace him or rattle bones or anything like that. But I'm thinking of it more like they're just doing their due diligence, seeing what's out there, seeing what alternatives there may be, and evaluating whether or not Bass fits that long-term commitment. I wouldn't expect any decision made, drastically decision like that by this week. I would want to see how Tyler Bass plays on Monday night. If he's missing things, if he's just not with it, if it seems like he's lost it, then there's going to be a little bit more gasoline, I think, poured on this flame. But right now, I'd say that's more just the coaching staff doing their due diligence and making sure that Tyler knows, hey, we're serious about this thing, and we need to keep the machine moving one way or the other. And step just the game up, or you'll be stepped out.
And just to point out too, John, the NFL media, nationwide media, did point out, while it's not nice to sit back and armchair quarterback and say that these kickers are awful, there's a reason why they're unemployed. There are better options out there that if the Bills were more serious about this, they would have probably or had the potential to bring in better kickers, just statistically better kickers. So I wonder if, again, I can't imagine the Bills carrying 2 kickers, because the only other thing I could think of here, John, is that Tyler Bass has to get better at kickoffs in Buffalo, because kicking into the wind, it bit them a bit on what was it, the first week of the season? I almost said Sunday football. I'm an idiot. So again, that's something.
Sunday afternoon football.
Yeah, exactly. You have to pay better attention to that, just because, hey, that could be a thing that could really cause problems moving forward. But
absolutely,
we're going to take our quick commercial break here, and we'll be back with more Trust the Podcast, our Around the NFL segment.
Yeah,
right
buddy.
After these commercial breaks here on the Gear Radio Network.
Do it up.
And we're back here on Trust the Podcast. Myself, Ryan Wolfe, John Cimino, joining here to talk to you about the Buffalo Bills' convincing victory over the Miami Dolphins, a 31-10 victory. John, what's become our BLTD segment of the Trust the Podcast, our Around the NFL? Please, my friend, take it from here.
Well, I will say I did make a promise last week that I am going to fulfill.
Around the NFL, yeah, is brought to you by Go Frost Yourself. Yeah, they're located in Rochester, New York, and they do what other local bakeries do not. They bake from scratch, creating recipes themselves and using the best fresh ingredients they can, yeah, to find and create delicious flavors for customers daily. Yeah, Molly and Jen.
Hello, Molly. Hello, Jen.
They work tirelessly to create what Go Frost Yourself has become today, and their passion can be tasted in the items that they bake. So when you're looking, yeah, and you find yourself looking for an item for a special occasion, like when you elbow drop Hulk Hogan and pin him 1, 2, 3 for the World Heavyweight Championship, yeah, or maybe you want to try their incredible cinnamon rolls if you're local, yeah, go visit Go Frost Yourself storefront at 2544 Ridgeway Avenue, yeah, or at GoFrostYourself.com. Dig it, yeah.
God damn, man. That was every time you do that, it gets more impressive.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad you like it. But hey, seeing as this is the BLTD segment, if you don't mind if I could steal a couple of seconds away for some breaking news. Yeah, you like that? Little news article.
That's cute. I like it.
For the basketball fan in your life, if you liked the Woj bombs from Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN reports that NBA insider Adrian Wojnarowski, I butchered the last name, I'm sorry, but Woj, retires from the network and agrees to become the general manager of the St. Bonaventure men's basketball program.
And apparently he walked away from like $20 million to do it.
Yeah, walk away from a lot of money. So breaking news.
Hey, that's actually a good transition to talking about walking away from a lot of money, although it's not really a lot of money because it's guaranteed. But John?
Yeah.
Miami lost to Buffalo. We know that. Miami also lost quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, recorded his third documented concussion in the NFL. Tagovailoa has subsequently been placed on the IR, meaning he will miss the next 4 games at least, which I believe will be 5 weeks because Miami's bye week also falls at the end of those 4 games.
Yes.
But with that being said, Tagovailoa recently got the bag, which is exactly what you want NFL players to do, is get the bag, get the guaranteed money. It's like 167 million guaranteed or something like that. So he's going to be fine. In terms of Tua Tagovailoa, the football player, though, what has to happen next? Because this can't continue.
To be perfectly honest with you, I am on the he needs to retire train, only because as someone that has had his fair share of concussions, stemming from my pro wrestling days, with my most recent one being this past March, the coming back from that is very, very difficult, and I don't think has enough awareness around it. I shared a little bit with it last week on Listen in the podcast when I was talking with Brandon about this very subject, and kind of shared from my perspective when I had my bell rung, even recently, and it wasn't a major concussion. I've had a major concussion before because of wrestling that's taken me out an extended period of time. That wasn't fun either. None of it is fun. But just to be able to, the first of all, the involuntary movement of the hands, extremely concerning. It's extremely concerning. And then when you talk about coming back from it, and here and just the things that you take for granted or you don't think are big things. When I last and I'll share this really quickly, but my last concussion that I had, I was in the wrestling ring. It was this past March, and I took a move. It was a very routine move, but sometimes in wrestling you can't really prepare for the whiplash, right? Sometimes the whiplash it comes a lot quicker than you could do everything you can to prepare your best for it. But sometimes accidents happen, and that's what happened. And I smacked the back of my head against the canvas incredibly hard, so hard to where I could hear the ping sound, like a physical, like metal dropping on the ground kind of sound, but in my head from that impact. And it was lights out. And when lights came back on, the photosensitivity happened. I wasn't really fully aware. I somehow managed to get, them to believe, hey, I'm okay, I'm good, and somehow got myself home. But the next day after that, I went to the 9 to 5, and in Tua's case, his 9 to 5 is football, so he's at least okay there. Like in football operations, things like that, he could kind of. But my 9 to 5 is not wrestling. It's something else. And I have zero memory of the day after. And the next day after that, it was, day-long meetings, things like that. The photosensitivity, I got sick a couple of times. Like, the recovery is real. And the recovery is hard. It is hard to do. And from that perspective, and having that insight from myself, to what should strongly consider hanging up the cleats, hang up the spikes. You got your guaranteed money. You're set. Your family is set generationally. Your family is set. You did more than most people can say that they do. You national championship in Alabama. You were the starting quarterback there. You were drafted to the NFL, starting quarterback in the NFL, getting the NFL big contract. Like, you did a lot more than most people can say. You weren't regulated to the UFL or XFL or any of that stuff. You were good enough to be a highly paid starting quarterback in the NFL and set yourself up for future success. An injury like this, a head injury, comes with such long-term effects and long-term impacts. You look at Junior Seau, names like that come to mind. And his were non-documented at a time when there was zero awareness around it. Now there's lots of awareness around it. And I think the human element in all of this, take your team allegiance aside and focus on the human element here. I think for his long-term health benefit and safety, I'm not begging, but I'm saying, knowing he's not listening anyways, but I'm saying, give it some serious thought, because the next one that could happen could really be it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better. Each concussion that you have, the more damage to the brain, the more long-term effects you're at risk for, the harder these are to come back from. And I'm fortunate enough to where I learned a lot about it after the one massive one that I had that took me out for like 2 months back in 2006 in a match. And it just, I made myself aware, but sometimes it's unavoidable. But if you have the option, like you do right now, Tua, you've got your money. The Miami Dolphins, give him an office job. You know what I mean? Have him be an ambassador or something. And he's still young enough to where he can find something else to fulfill that hole that maybe he's a concussion advocate. Maybe he Sure. is the one that makes that's that ambassador that creates the awareness and that type of stuff. There could be a lot of different things, but Tua, the football player, I really feel from the human side should be done.
And you said it. I couldn't say it any better. Honestly, it's time.
As you can tell, I'm very passionate. I'm actually very passionate about concussion awareness because of my experiences with them.
I would agree with you. Yeah, I feel the same way, where you see it and you're like, look at, every time I watch the Dolphins, and I'm not just saying this because I'm like, doom watching or whatever, but I always worry about, okay, is this going to be the game where it happens? And Unfortunately, yeah, it was the game where it happened. And you go, first response is just like, no, this is not.
Yeah, it sucked. It sucked to watch.
Absolutely.
It really did. Like, it was not, obviously playfully, Tua throwing an interception, in the quarter beforehand, we were laughing at that, like, oh yeah, like clockwork. There it is. Ha ha ha. But then when that happened, it's like nobody wanted to see that. No one wants to see that. No one wants that for him or anybody. And it really did change the dynamic of the game. But more than that, it has the potential to change the dynamic of Tua's actual life and his livelihood.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really something he should truly consider. And if I'm the Miami Dolphins brass and coaching staff and all of that, I'm taking the football element out of it and I'm focusing on the human. And I think Mike McDaniel is actually very good at doing that. So I'm sure that conversation's being had internally, but I think for him personally, it's a tough pill to swallow to tell an athlete you can't do it anymore, or hey kid, time to maybe hang it up. But sooner rather than later, better to be safe than sorry. Like any of those cliches you want, when it comes to traumatic head injuries like that, you want to err on the side of caution.
Absolutely. Hey man, speaking of things sucking, it's a lot of fun to be a New York Giants fan these days. They found a new and innovative way to lose.
Indeed.
The Giants fall to the Washington Commanders 21-18. The Giants become the first team in NFL history to score 3+ touchdowns, allow no touchdowns, and lose in regulation. Washington kicker Austin Seibert, I believe is how you name it. Seibert,
I think.
7 of 7 on field goals, 27, 45, 26, 27, 29, 33, and 30. Now,
maybe that's what Buffalo was looking at when they were bringing in some other kickers. They're like, we need ourselves a Seibert guy.
That tells me that the offense is stalling very close to the red area, if you will. But as Jalen Daniels gets more comfortable in the NFL in that offense, I think that will adjust. But
yeah,
also they've got a guy who can nail the kicks. But wow, that is
an unbelievable like, listen, I get it as a Jets fan. Like, I get the whole same old Jets and whatever. But like, even as a Jets fan, like Jets fans are looking at that going, "Damn, dude, really?" Like, that's bad.
Yeah, it's new and innovative ways to lose. Like I said, I don't know that if it continues that Brian Dable will have a job much longer, but we can talk about that down the road. The surprise upstart New Orleans Saints defeat the Dallas Cowboys 44-19.
High-powered.
Alvin Kamara, 20 carries for 115 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 65 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. This loss snaps Dallas's 16-game home winning streak. Now, John, speaking of losses, Baltimore falls to the Las Vegas Raiders 26-23 in a shocker. They coughed up a late lead and lost. John, I texted you Sunday at 4:23 p.m. and said, "So the Ravens suck now," quote unquote. 6 minutes later, you responded with, quote, "It's week 2, LOL." Now, John, I agree with you.
To be fair, I was high.
That's okay. But I agree with you. It's early, but as Miss Cleo once said, the cards don't lie. And here,
call me now for free reading.
The stats
Every
don't lie.
Every time you mention Miss Cleo, I have to do that tagline. I
appreciate it. The Baltimore Sun points out, and this is what I was trying to get to, but didn't have the time to get to it. Quote, since the NFL playoffs expanded to 14 teams in 2020, 32 franchises have started 0-2. Only 2 of those 32 teams, or 6.25%, Cincinnati in 2022 and Houston in 2023, made the playoffs. Just 5 of those 32 teams finished the season with a winning record. So, hard stop first. Cincinnati high-powered, Houston high-powered. Baltimore has the firepower to do that again. Not that they want to, but they have the firepower. I'll continue. Only 3 teams have ever won the Super Bowl after an 0-2 start: the 93 Cowboys, the 2001 Patriots, and the 2007 New York Giants. For the Ravens, Sunday's collapse against the Raiders sets up what could be viewed as a must-win game against the Dallas Cowboys, who are, at the time of this article's writing, early 1.5-point favorites in the matchup next Sunday afternoon. Since 1979, John, only 6 teams have made the postseason after starting 0-3. Only 1 team since 2000, the 2018 Texans, have made the postseason after going winless in its first 3 games, and no Super Bowl champion has ever started the season 0-3. So the Baltimore Ravens are 0-2 for the first time with Lamar Jackson at quarterback, staring 0-3 right in the face, because the Cowboys, despite getting spanked by the Saints, they are not a bad football team. With that being said, though, it's crazy to think that this is a must-win in week 3, but Baltimore's headed to Dallas, looking at 0-3, with the Buffalo Bills coming into town on Sunday Night Football in week 4. So this season really could not have started off much worse for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, when you put it like that, and regardless of how the Dallas Cowboys play, playing in Dallas is a very, very tough thing. But then on top of that, to have Buffalo come here, or Buffalo come to Baltimore there, and the way that the Bills are playing and the chip that they have on their shoulders with number 17 on the field, again, you're always going to have a chance to win so long as number 17 is on the field.
Absolutely.
And I would argue the same point with number 8 for Baltimore with Lamar Jackson and their head coach, John Harbaugh. He's seen adversity before, but you're right. To come into Dallas 0-2, this is a must-win game, because if they go into Baltimore at 0-3 with the Bills coming to town and the Bills beat them and they start 0-4, that is going to be very hard for them to come back from. They would need to go on quite the run and need a little bit of luck, I think, towards the end of the season in order to become the new statistic of 0-4 starts.
And to not even mention, to go BLTD real quick, I know we're running tight on time, so I'll make this point very quickly, John. But the Bengals look fine, despite the fact that they always start slow. You've got the Browns, who look fine after their week 1 loss. They come back and have a fine. They win week 2. Didn't look great. Whatever, a win's a win. And then you also have Pittsburgh, who somehow is making chicken salad out of chicken shit with Justin Fields at quarterback.
That's unbelievable to me.
Like that is a Mike Tomlin coaching job if I've ever seen one. And they're 2-0.
Tomlin is that dude. Like, he gets those boys playing, and that's insane to me that he can get Justin Fields to start a team at 2-0, and the Bears couldn't do anything with him.
Yeah. Well, hey, speaking of not being able to do anything with high drafted quarterbacks, Carolina officially benches quarterback Bryce Young in lieu of quarterback Andy Dalton. In 18 career games, Young is 2-16, a 59.3 completion percentage, 3,122 passing yards with 11 touches, 13 picks, and 44 rushes for 271 yards and a touchdown. We were going to talk more about this. We're running tight on time, so I'll just mention that because, again, that's a big deal. The other big deal here, Atlanta defeating Philadelphia in the closing seconds of Monday Night Football. John, per at Next Gen Stats, which we know is Next Gen Stats on Twitter, the Falcons had just a 0.7% chance of winning the game with 1:56 left in the fourth quarter, according to the NGS Next Gen Stats win probability model. This comeback is the 7th most improbable win in the Next Gen Stats era, which is since 2016. Incredible. Absolutely. Because again, the Eagles just chose not to play defense, and Kirk Cousins went when I don't know what his nickname is. The 2 Chainz nickname.
I can't remember.
Kirk Cousins balled out. They did great. But again, I know we've talked about injuries in the past. Injuries strike again big during week 2. Many big names do not make it through without injuries. Indiana defensive end DeForest Buckner headed to the IR with an ankle injury. KC running back Isaiah Pacheco headed to the IR with a fibula injury, a broken fibula. They did just add Kareem Hunt to the practice squad, so keep an eye out for that. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert was rolled up on. They say he should be fine, but we'll see. Rams wide receiver Cooper Kupp has an ankle injury, could potentially hit the IR if he already hasn't. Minnesota wide receiver Justin Jefferson left the game with a quad contusion, said to be okay. We'll see. Giants kicker Graham Gano, hamstring injury happened on the opening kickoff of the game, which led to the Giants having to go for it every time. New York Jets linebacker C.J. Mosley out with a foot injury. Defensive tackle for the Buccaneers Vita Vea, MCL injury. San Francisco wide receiver Deebo Samuel, calf injury, expected to miss a few weeks. And Philadelphia wide receiver A.J. Brown, hamstring injury, was ruled out prior to Monday Night Football, now expected to miss a few weeks. So if you have any of those players in fantasy, I feel your pain because I do as well. But
Indeed. You also one more to note that is AFC East as well, and could potentially impact the Buffalo Bills. But New York Jets linebacker Jermaine Johnson out for the season, torn Achilles.
I meant to mention that. I didn't write that down. I appreciate you always keeping me honest here, John. Yeah. Our look ahead, closing up the podcast very quickly here. Week 3, the Buffalo Bills. Wow, hi, English is my first language. It's the first time I'm talking today. The Buffalo Bills host the Jacksonville Jaguars on Monday Night Football. Kickoff is at 7:30 p.m. It is part of a Monday Night Football doubleheader. The Jacksonville Jaguars 0-2, tied for second in the AFC South, tied for last. Last week, an 18-13 loss to Cleveland. 18-13 loss to Cleveland. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence, a 51% completion percentage in the first 2 games this season with only 1 touch, no picks. Running back Travis Etienne Jr. had a great first game, not so great against Cleveland. He has 96 rushing yards, 25 carries with 5 receptions, and 21 receiving yards in 2 games. John, ESPN's matchup predictor, 66.3% of America believes Buffalo will come out victorious in this Monday Night Football matchup. Who you got?
I am among the 66.3% taking Buffalo. I see no reason, not to say that Jacksonville isn't improved or has improved from last year to this year. They certainly have, but I don't think they've improved enough to match the firepower that is the Buffalo Bills, to match this defense that's sort of having a bit of a renaissance resurgence there. We mentioned Von Miller earlier on as well, finding his form. If he's truly the Von Miller of old and found his form, Trevor Lawrence is going to be in for some trouble. And I just don't think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are up to the code to compete over the course of 4 quarters with Buffalo. I think it'll be close at first, but I'm thinking Buffalo hits that 32 to 35 point mark, and Jacksonville will probably be around the 14 to 17 point range. I think most of their points would probably come in garbage time, just because I haven't seen enough out of Jacksonville to believe that they're strong enough to do anything more against Buffalo. I could be wrong, but I'm I'm with America on this one.
It's the Mitch Morse revenge game, so I'm expecting Ed Oliver to run him over for a nice sack. It's the Gabe Davis revenge game. I'm expecting him to drop a wide open pass at some point in time on Monday Night Football. John, this is how I feel really quickly. The Jacksonville Jaguars can win on Monday night. I could also win the lottery or walk outside and be killed by a drone strike. Anything in this world is possible. With that being said, fat chance. Go Buffalo. I got the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, shockingly, not just because I'm a homer, but come to Buffalo on a Sunday at 1 o'clock and try to win. And then come to Buffalo on a Monday night nationally televised game where people are going to be drinking from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Right.
Into Monday night, bro. It's going to be...
It's a vibe. It's
going to be electric. It's going to be electric. I believe the weather's supposed to be beautiful. So again, I just want to call on our friend Chris Berman. Just hit us with it, bud.
Berman, what do you got?
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
Thanks, Boomer.
For John Cimino, I am Ryan Wolfe. As always, we are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We will catch you same time, same place next week. As always, thank you so much for continuing to tune in, and go Bills.
Ciao, ciao, everybody.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.